News!
Okay, we'll start with this ahead of Angelina Lucas's next ring appearance against unknown challenger Andengenye. I'm not even going to pretend I said that right or that I know much about this opponent because I don't. I tried to look her up. I tried to see what Angelina will be up against this weekend, and for the life of me, I could not find out much about Andengenye aside from things got spicy at the ceremonial weigh-in. And that the fight is set to be going down this weekend in Dubai. Dubai, baby! Tell you something about Angelina. For a fighter that's not with a major promotional outfit or boxing on a major platform, her handlers do a good job of keeping her active, keeping her busy whenever and wherever they can, even if it's often against low-level competition. Angelina Lucas sports a professional record of 15 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional bouts. One of 2 fights she has on schedule for this month. The first is this weekend, and the second is a little later on in about 2 or 3 weeks on the 20th against an opponent that has yet to be announced. And I can only tell you now what I told you before, that when you're scheduling fights that close together in the same month, it's likely against low-level competition. It's likely against journeywomen and gatekeepers and fighters with upside-down records.
What gave it away?
Well, if Angelina were actually fighting somebody good this weekend, she could hardly make a commitment to then have another fight in the same month without knowing what's going to happen in this weekend's fight, unless
You know you're gonna win because you know that this girl isn't very good.
you know you're going to win, so you know that you can make it to a December 20th fight date to fight yet another girl that isn't very good. If you're fighting fighters that aren't that good, you can schedule several fights like this in succession in the same month. That's what I think the rationale is. That's what I think Angelina and her team are doing. I said it before that Angelina has some ability, don't get me wrong, but she strikes me as sort of a gimmick boxer.
What's the gimmick?
Duh, look at this pretty girl with this pretty chest and these pretty legs. Look at her. She's a boxer, but she's so pretty.
That's the gimmick.
It's not to say that she never fought anybody good, because she did. She did fight a former champion in Deborah Ana E. Lopez, a veteran fighter in Daniela Asenjo. But when I look at Angelina in action, I don't see a polished boxer. And the fact that she's fighting for a WBF title,
The fuck is that?
as opposed to a WBC, a WBO, or a WBA. Any fighter fighting for a WBF title can't really aspire to have a serious boxing career fighting for a fringe belt on the fringe of serious boxing and serious boxers.
So it's hard for me to look at Angelina Lucas as a serious competitor, a serious fighter.
This news comes to us on the heels of a domestic clash, at least the proposition for one, between Angelina Lucas and her countrywoman Beluza Muzdaman, 2 up-and-coming fighters, both from Kazakhstan, who campaign at or around the same weight. Flyweight, superfly,
Bantam.
both fighters hover at or around those weights, and there's growing demand for a fight between them to determine who's the best. I think if they do fight, Beluza wins. Beluza's quality of competition isn't much better than Angelina's, but she shows more ability.
Just looking at her in action, her X's and O's, she does appear a more polished boxer with a tidier game than Angelina Lucas. So if and when they do fight, I would favor Beluza to win, but the fight between them, it's gotta be something for next year, as Angelina is all booked up for this one. 2 fights in the same month.
Ceremonial weigh-in gives us a good idea what kind of fighters she'll be facing in those 2 fights. Nobody who's top of the line at the top of their game. Nobody like that.
And that's where the gimmick is, though, isn't it? Just putting this pretty girl in there with no hopers, watching her win, and then marveling at how pretty she is, the little peacock.
Now listen, it's not to say that you can't be a polished boxer and a looker at the same time. There's ample examples of this. Just saying, in the case of Angelina, that fighter specifically, that definitely appears to be the gimmick, because she's really not that good a boxer to the eye. In any event, she will be in action this weekend on the 3rd in Dubai against a lackluster opponent, another one, and I'm sure that she'll win.
Men's middleweight news, you may have heard the shocking revelation ahead of this weekend's pay-per-view card. Janibek Alimkhanuly has tested positive for a banned substance, and the unification match is now off.
BoxingScene.com has confirmed that the unbeaten IBF and WBO middleweight champion has tested positive for the banned substance meldonium. The development officially jeopardizes a showdown with WBA champion Lara, which was due to air as part of a PBC on Prime Video pay-per-view event this Saturday from the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio. Meldonium is the same banned substance that Alexander Povetkin tested positive for ahead of what was supposed to be his fight with Deontay Wilder that was subsequently called off. It's a vasodilator,
allowing for more oxygen and therefore more energy to the fighter.
And I believe that it's also a weight-cutting agent that allows the user to burn fat while simultaneously retaining muscle. Ring Magazine was the first to report this news. An adverse finding of the substance was discovered from a November 15th sample collected through random testing as contracted through VADA, according to a letter obtained by Boxing Scene. Ironically, Kazakhstan's Alimkhanuly informed his fans in real time through social media on the day he was contacted by testers. The 32-year-old southpaw Alimkhanuly has since addressed the issue following the positive test becoming public knowledge.
Meldonium wasn't always on the banned list. It was added to it in circa 2015. Before that, it was perfectly legal for use.
But given what the added benefits are of using this substance, it's very easy to see why it was added to the banned list. I have always supported clean sport. You know this well, Alimkhanuly stated via social media. I was surprised when I read the news. VADA took the test first and said everything was clean. I have not made any changes to my vitamins. I don't know what happened with the second test, so I requested a retest. As is the standard with all adverse findings in drug tests, the offending party has the right to request the testing of their B sample. It is extremely rare for the results to differ, though there have been occasions when boxers were cleared upon proving contamination. Nevertheless, Boxing Scene has learnt that due to the timing of the development, the most likely scenario at this juncture is for Lara to remain on the card against another opponent. Preliminary reports are already indicating that Lara will defend his WBA title against Johan Gonzalez this weekend as he was training and on standby.
Per Dan Rafael,
Gonzalez is coming off a win over ex-junior middleweight champion Jarrett Hurd, the last man to beat Lara in the 2018 Fight of the Year.
Is that a coincidence?
Well, having an opponent on standby should another fighter drop out is hardly suspicious. I mean, in some ways, it's an industry standard.
Yeah, if it were for the main event, but for a co-main event? And that the standby shares a common opponent with Lara. That's curious.
Now back over to Janibek and this would-be meldonium case. Meldonium is a prescription drug in select Eastern European nations. Though perhaps a moot point since Janibek denies having ever used the substance, it was placed on the WADA banned list both for in and out of competition use in 2016 due to its ability to shift metabolism, to increase endurance, and also accelerate rehabilitation and recovery. Should Alimkhanuly fail to gain clearance and be found at fault for the positive test, the IBF and WBO are then required to take measures which could result in the end of his unified title reign. He has held the WBO title since 2022 and unified in October of the following year with a knockout win over a then unbeaten Vincenzo Gualtieri. Lara, 31-3 with 3 draws and 19 knockouts, has not fought since a September 2024 knockout win over former 2-division champion Danny Garcia in Las Vegas.
So let me first express my disappointment that this fight is now officially off and Lara will be fighting someone else, because this is one of the fights that I was looking forward to, perhaps a little bit more than the main event. The middleweight division sorely needed a shot in the arm, a sense of continuity and finality.
That unification matches are still happening, and that at least one fighter or some fighters at the weight still aspire to become undisputed champions. That we're not going to get this now.
It's disappointing.
To some degree, it hurts the marketability of the card that initially, if you bought it, you were going to get 3 title fights, one of which was a unification match, and now... And what is the added irony of Janibek Alimkhanuly on several social media posts boasting proudly of all the times that he had been tested by VADA just for him to get caught in the act if that's what really happened.
Is it?
On one end, it could just be a fighter hamming it up for the cameras to make himself seem like a clean athlete, a proud athlete, who would never do something like that.
All the while behind the scenes being on the juice. We ain't talking about OJ.
I mean, that is one way to look at it. A guilty fighter hamming it up for the cameras as to not elicit suspicion.
There is another way to look at it. Through a more suspicious lens, the timing of this revelation, right before the fight. Ain't that about a bitch?
It sure is. It's almost like Lara dodged the bullet. It's almost like somebody helped him in a fight that he was favored to lose. Most people favored Janibek Alimkhanuly to win this fight, to steamroll an aged Lara, and this recent revelation...
You think somebody helped him. You think somebody might have tainted Janibek's samples.
I think it's a possibility. I remember 2 or 3 years ago when Rolly Romero was supposed to fight a then unbeaten Alberto Puello, and out of the clear blue sky, Alberto tests positive for a banned substance.
Remember that?
And remember that fight was supposed to be for a title, but after Alberto got popped, he was out, and an aged Ishmael Barroso was in. Rolly ended up fighting someone else for that WBA title, someone who was perceived as being more beatable. I don't think that was a coincidence.
And so you're saying this isn't a coincidence?
If it's possible that the PBC could set up one of their own in Alberto Puello, it's just as possible that they could set up somebody else's fighter in Janibek Alimkhanuly.
Do you out there think that that is outside the realm of possibility?
Separately, there is a third scenario, that maybe Janibek Alimkhanuly himself doesn't know what he's being given. Plausible deniability. He can't admit to cheating if he doesn't know he's doing it, if he doesn't know what he's being given. Plausible deniability.
So in the first scenario, it could just be Janibek is a dirty fighter like a lot of other dirty fighters because there are plenty of them in boxing. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is maybe he's being set up.
And the third scenario is he doesn't know what's going on himself because he doesn't know what he's being given.
I'll let you guys decide for yourselves which one of those scenarios makes more sense to you, but this development has serious implications that reverberate throughout the neighboring weight classes. Should Janibek Alimkhanuly be stripped of his 2 alphabet titles as a result of this, fighters at 154 now stand a better chance of becoming champions at 160 because they won't have to go through Janibek to do it.
There may be 2 vacant titles up there very soon. Just as well, Janibek Alimkhanuly was supposed to be in the running for not just a Lara fight, but a Terence Crawford showdown in the coming calendar year. If he loses his 2 alphabet titles, he's out of the running for that fight. There would be no reason for Terence Crawford to face him. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, Terence can still move down, and he can still challenge for one of those 2 vacant titles, but who wants to see Terence fight for vacant titles? They want to see him fight somebody good.
There would be only 2 champions remaining in the middleweight division, if that is the scenario. Lara, who nobody wants to see Terence fight, and his old sparring partner, Carlos Adames, who still is WBC middleweight champion.
If Janibek is now out of the running for a Crawford fight, that might make Carlos Adames the next runner-up. Not to say that Crawford versus Carlos is some huge fight, because it really isn't. Carlos Adames is only really known amongst hardcore, really hardcore boxing fans, but you want to see Terence fight somebody good, and you want to see Terence fight a champion.
Carlos is free.
And Janibek Alimkhanuly is all jammed up right now. If he's stripped of his 2 alphabet titles, he's likely going to move up. The dream of becoming undisputed middleweight champion would die as a result, and Carlos would have no further reason to stay in the middleweight division. He would likely move up once he's stripped.
Implications. This development has serious implications. We'll see what shakes out.
Because what doesn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse.
What the fuck does that mean?
Elsewhere in the middleweight division, Chris Eubank Jr. vows to fight health issues before considering a ring return. Chris Eubank Jr. has vowed not to box until he can overcome his ongoing health issues and admitted he does not know when he will be back to full steam. A clearly depleted Eubank looked a shell of his former self when he was soundly beaten by bitter rival Conor Benn at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on November 15th. The 36-year-old did well to complete the distance at all after he was dropped twice by his opponent in the final round of their anticipated rematch, which ended in a unanimous decision for Conor Benn. Around an hour after the final bell, Eubank took his seat for his post-fight press conference but refused to reveal exactly what had gone wrong during the training camp, despite claiming he had been to hell and back to simply make it to fight night. Now Eubank has uploaded a video to social media showing him undergoing a procedure in a hospital. He appears to be under general anesthetic while a tube with a camera is being fed down his throat. His caption read, "I've been dealing with a lot of health issues over the last year, and yeah, it finally caught up to me last month." On his future, he wrote, "I will not box again until I'm back to 100%, and I don't know when that will be, but one thing's for certain. For the fans that have supported me through thick and thin, I will do everything in my power to make sure that one day the old me makes a big comeback." Eubank won his first showdown with Ben at Spurs back in April after edging their memorable 12-rounder, but things were very different in the rematch. His famous dad, Chris Sr., has already insisted his son should now retire, while Harlem Eubank recently told The Ring that his cousin has nothing left to prove and should consider his future. Now, I don't want to downplay what could be Chris Eubank Jr.'s medical issues, his health issues, but there are questions that need answers. Friend of the channel, Right on Cue, asked a few of them. The first one was, how did he pass a pre-fight physical?
If his medical issues are lingering and are so great, how did this guy get approved to fight in the first place?
Second question, why did he adamantly refuse to disclose the issues?
Well, that could be because if he told people what they were, they may not have allowed him to fight.
The third question, why did his trainer, manager, or promoter not stop him from fighting?
We don't know how much the trainer, the manager, and the promoter did or didn't know about Chris Eubank Jr.'s health issues. What we do know is that his father didn't want him to fight. His father didn't want him to make the weight for this fight.
That's at least one person on Chris's side that didn't want him to go through with this. The fourth question, what are the details of these health issues he's had?
Well, I'm no Doogie Howser, but that looked a lot like an endoscopy they were performing on Chris Eubank Jr.
Using a thin, flexible tube with a camera to examine the upper digestive tract, or larynx. The procedure can be performed through the mouth or nose and allows a doctor to diagnose and treat conditions like ulcers, reflux, or voice changes. One can only hope for the sake of Chris that needing an endoscopy doesn't herald something more serious, but generally, ulcers in and of themselves, or reflux, are not life-threatening, not by themselves.
And if these are not life-threatening health issues that Chris is dealing with, why all the drama?
Assuming that they're not, and let's hope that they're not. Alternatively, one way you can look at it is, this is a means to invalidate Conor Benn's revenge win over Chris by suggesting that Chris was just a shell of his former self.
He was sick, he had swamp ass.
I mean, that's what people have been saying, that Chris was just a husk of the fighter that he used to be, and thus Conor doesn't deserve much credit for beating him.
Could just be them trying to invalidate Conor Benn's win over that fighter.
And I would prefer that all of this just be more theatricality from the Eubankses than anything serious. Let's hope Chris gets back on his feet.